The first time I knew the house key was gone, the freezer knocked like there was a heartbeat inside it. It wasn't a loud sound, but it was sharp, the kind of small mechanical protest that makes a man stop and listen. I stood there for a second, the hall light low and the refrigerator hum threading through the air like a wire. The sound came again, 3 quick knocks, soft but deliberate, as though the thing inside had decided to announce itself. For a moment I thought it was the compressor, or maybe a trapped ice cube shifting in the tray, but the rhythm was too human, too aware. "Don't you dare touch the food! My husband's family is coming!" my daughter shouted from the kitchen. Her voice had that hot edge that meant she was either embarrassed or scared. At 16, there isn't much difference between the two. I was in the hall where the floor dips a 1/4 inch, because the original joists are the kind that look straight until you lay a 2-foot level on them. I had that level in my hand. It's a habit I can't shake, checking, measuring, confirming that things are still true even when they look fine. I had stocked that fridge top to bottom, every shelf and drawer, and this is my house. But my daughter is 16 and red hot, in the way only 16 gets. Fierce, righteous, newly fluent in all the ways parents are supposedly wrong. I stepped into the doorway and raised both hands like a man surrendering to a traffic cop. "My hands are clean," I said. "I only came for the ice." She squinted at me. Same green eyes as her mother. Same way of tracking my voice for a trap. Her hair was pulled back too tight, the way she does it when she's trying to look older, and a few strands had escaped and glowed gold in the afternoon light. She pulled the freezer handle with more force than the hinge liked and leaned in. She had that quick inhale teenagers make when something shiny sits next to something off-limits, a kind of half-gasp that's half wonder and half accusation. "Mom," she called, turning her head but not her body. "Mom." No answer. The house hummed in that late afternoon way it always does, when the wind off the harbour picks up and flirts with the soffits. You could smell the brine in the air, faint and metallic, and underneath it the tired sweetness of detergent from the laundry room vent. The boardwalk was quiet. The gulls had gone somewhere inland, and the air had that damp, woolen heaviness that means October has taken the town by the shoulders and isn't letting go. October here is a month that wears its fatigue openly. It's the sound of wet leaves sticking to tires, the smell of old rope and rust, the creak of porch boards that swell after rain. You can feel it in your socks. "What is it?" I said. I kept my voice level. "I have practice. I am a home inspector. I spend my days narrating flaws to people who don't want to hear about them, turning cracks into metaphors for character and patience. If I get excited, the clients think mold is a demon. It is never a demon. It is always 2 leaks and a shutoff someone forgot existed. You learn to speak slow and soft, like a man describing a dream." "Who bought this cake?" she asked. "And why is the label in French?" "I didn't." "Must have been a generous donor," I said, stepping closer, but not too close. "It's pistachio," she said. "Mom hates pistachio." "Maybe the donor loves it," I said. She dug deeper, shoving aside a stack of the frozen marinaras I make on Sundays, the ones in quart bags labeled with blue tape. I could see her reflection in the stainless steel door. Narrow shoulders, sudden stillness. Then she leaned back so fast her shoulder hit the top grill. She gasped loud, stepping away like the freezer had hissed at her. "What?" I said. "What is it?" She slammed the drawer shut, then yanked it open again, as if she needed to confirm what she saw. Her face had gone pale. She stared another beat, then ran toward the hall. "Don't touch anything. I have to call Mom," she said, and her sneakers squeaked toward the stairs, each step louder than it needed to be. I walked the slow way to the freezer. Old habits again. I have opened crawl spaces and found nests of wasps, and once a family of raccoons, and I've learned that moving fast never helps. I pulled the drawer. On top sat a vacuum-sealed cake in a mint green box, its edges frosted with a thin layer of freezer haze. A white sticker declared its pedigree from some boutique patisserie 2 towns over. The box was small but elegant, the kind that implies an occasion or an apology. Under that box, in the shallow little lip where frost likes to build a fort, there was nothing. There should have been a brass key on a brass ring, tied with a dull red ribbon I cut from one of my mother's Christmas boxes 3 years ago. Spare key. Emergency use only. The ribbon was gone. The key was gone. The space where it had rested was faintly outlined, like the ghost of a thing that once lay there, a clean patch surrounded by frost. Something thumped in the back of the freezer as the compressor cycled. Not a heartbeat. Still, I couldn't shake the image. The sense that something inside was marking time, waiting for acknowledgement. My daughter thudded back down the stairs as if gravity had doubled. She had her phone in her hand, and her screen lit her face in a pale square of light. On that glass, a message banner sat with a heart and a key, and a building emoji. I watched her try not to angle the screen away from me. I remembered that we share an Apple ID for app purchases, because I am cheap and practical, and told myself to breathe like a man who knows where the shutoffs are. Mum says do not eat the dessert, she said, chin up. God forbid, I said. She searched my face for something. Guilt, maybe. Or amusement. I gave her nothing. One of us needs to keep the air clear in this house. One of us needs to smile politely and say nothing until there is something to say and somewhere to aim it. That has always been my role. Containment, the quieting of rooms. I slid the cake aside. I saw the pale scratch where the brass ring used to live. I let the drawer close. I felt my pocket. The main keys were there, heavy and honest. The missing one was the one that opens the back door quietly. The only door that doesn't squeal if you know how to lift the handle just right. The only door that could let someone in or out without waking the house. Your grandparents come at 6, she said, and Mom says, stop being passive-aggressive about the dessert. Tell Mom I am saving my aggression for the active portion of the evening, I said. My daughter rolled her eyes and went to set the plates she likes because she believes a matching set changes a family. It does not. Screws change a family. Valves. Which wire you cap. What you record when no one thinks you are recording. Those things change everything. I took my level and went down to the basement. The basement is where the house keeps its real heart. Every hum, every shiver of the floor above starts down there. The air was cool and smelled of dust and iron and something faintly sweet, like old fruit that had once been fresh. I switched on the light. The bulb took its time warming up, and in that slow brightening, I could see the concrete walls bloom from shadow. The furnace kicked once, then settled. I laid the level across the workbench. The bubble slid to the left. It always does. The foundation tilts half a degree toward the harbor, the same direction the wind likes to push the house in winter. I tell myself it's nothing structural, but it's a reminder. Everything leans, eventually. Even houses built on solid ground. I checked the cabinet where we keep the paint cans and rags. Nothing looked disturbed, but the smell of solvent was sharper than usual. Someone had been here recently. Maybe my wife, maybe the girl, maybe no one at all. Maybe it was just my brain tugging at old suspicions. There's a crawl space under the stairs where the original owner built a wine rack out of reclaimed cedar. The bottles are long gone, but the scent of the wood still lingers. I ducked down and looked inside. Empty. Just the soft accumulation of lint and time. The missing key nagged at me. A brass key with a red ribbon. Easy to spot, hard to lose. I had checked the freezer 2 days ago when I moved the leftover chili to make room for ice. The key was there then. That meant it vanished in 48 hours. 2 days in which only 3 people had reason to touch that freezer. My daughter hummed above me, a tuneless rhythm, the kind that says she's trying not to think. I could hear her setting plates, the gentle clink of porcelain, the occasional scrape as she adjusted them until they were exactly aligned. She is her mother's child that way, needing the illusion of control. I wiped my hands on a rag and sat on the bottom step. The phone in my pocket buzzed once. A notification, shared calendar reminder. Dinner with parents, 6 p.m. sharp. My wife's event. She likes her reminders precise. She sets them like traps. The house creaked again, that slow expansion sound of wood remembering summer. I thought of the freezer knocking earlier, of the French label on the cake, of the text with the key and heart emoji. My wife's phone had been acting strange lately, silent calls at night, messages that disappeared when she entered the room. I had noticed, because noticing is what I do for a living. Houses tell you when they're hiding something. So do people, if you know where to tap. The freezer wasn't hiding dessert. It was hiding intent. Upstairs, my daughter spoke softly into her phone. I caught fragments. Yes, I saw it. No, he didn't touch it. I know, okay, I won't. Her voice trembled just slightly at the end, the way a board trembles before it cracks. Then she hung up and ran water in the sink, loud and long, a signal that the conversation was over. I stood and went to the breaker panel. The labels are all in my handwriting. Kitchen, LR, bed 1, exterior. I touched each one, not flipping, just reminding myself what power belongs where. I found the one marked back porch and pressed my thumb against it until the metal left an imprint in my skin. The missing key wasn't just a key. It was an invitation. The back door opens onto a small yard, fenced but low, facing the alley where deliveries sometimes come. A person could park 2 houses down, walk through the gate, and be inside in under 20 seconds. Quiet, efficient. The cake box had looked new. The label's address was from Riverton, a town my wife has no reason to visit, except that her office once sent her there for a conference last spring. The patisserie name matched the one she'd posted about on social media. Once, a photo of a croissant and a cappuccino, captioned, "Small joys on the road." That post had gone up the same weekend she said her flight was delayed. I ran a hand through my hair and stared at the pipes above. The copper lines caught the light, bright where I'd scrubbed them clean last winter. Each joint was perfect, each valve tight. I keep this place in shape. I make sure it holds together. But you can't plumb against deceit. You can't level a marriage. Footsteps above. 2 sets this time. My wife must have come home. I heard the tone in her voice, bright, careful, rehearsed. The voice she uses when she's already chosen her side of the story. "Hi, honey," she called. "Dinner's in an hour. Don't make a mess down there, please." "Wouldn't dream of it," I said, not loud enough for her to hear. The freezer thumped again. Once, twice. I looked up. Maybe the compressor again, or maybe the rhythm of a house, remembering what's been taken from it. I climbed the stairs slowly, level still in hand. When I reached the kitchen, the table was nearly set. The cake sat on the counter now, thawing slightly, condensation beading on the plastic. My wife was arranging silverware. She looked up when she saw me and smiled in that way that says, "Behave." Her phone was on the counter beside her, screen down. "Where'd you get the dessert?" I asked. "Oh, that? A coworker dropped it off," she said easily. "Thought we might like something fancy for once." "Nice of them," I said. "Which coworker?" She hesitated. "You wouldn't know him. He's new." The him was casual, unguarded, too casual. My daughter busied herself with napkins. Her hand shook. "Well," I said, "it's beautiful." "Pistachio, huh?" "I know it's not my favorite," she said, "but your parents love anything European." I nodded. "And the key?" I said. Her eyes flicked up. "What key?" "The spare," I said. "The one from the freezer." She smiled again, tighter this time. "You and your little hiding places. Maybe you misplaced it." "Maybe," I said, "though you'd think I'd remember losing something brass and heavy." She shrugged. "Maybe the freezer ate it." "Maybe it did," I said. For a long second we stared at each other. Then she turned back to the silverware, the sound of metal on wood filling the space between us. Dinner went on schedule. Her parents arrived with their practiced warmth. My daughter played the part of perfect hostess, and I refilled glasses and smiled when appropriate. The cake stayed on the counter, sweating quietly. I kept catching my wife glancing at it, as if waiting for it to do something. When the guests left, and the house quieted again, she wrapped the leftover slices in foil and tucked them into the freezer. The same drawer, the same hollow space. She wiped her hands and turned off the light. Later, when the house slept, I went back down. I opened the drawer again. The cake was there, half eaten, rewrapped. Under it, nothing, just the clean patch of frost, but pressed faintly into the ice was the shape of something round, an impression like a ring. I touched it, cold but definite. The next morning, the back door was unlocked. The air smelled like pistachio and salt and something electric, like a storm waiting to break. Basements tell the truth if you let them. Mine smells like pine cleaner, laundry, and the ghost of a flood that happened in 1998 before I bought the place. The joists are original. The run of copper off the meter is mine. The shutoffs are all tagged with little laminated cards that I punched with my daughter when she was 8 and loved label makers. I tell clients all the time that a house is a body. The crawl space is the gut. The attic is the brain. The kitchen is the mouth. When the mouth lies, you go check the gut. I clipped the level to my belt and took out the little cardboard box I keep in a bin, marked winter cords. Inside was a camera the size of a sugar cube and a bracket I made from a strip of aluminum and 4 screws. Legal in our state, if it faces a mudroom and not a bathroom. I know this because I read. Also because a client once tried to sue a landlord for peeping and ended up suing a motion sensor instead. The law can be dumb, but it is also specific, like nails. I went back upstairs and pretended to hunt for a cutting board. My daughter clattered in the dining room, setting forks. I stepped into the mudroom like a man who forgot his jacket and mounted the tiny camera up in the corner where the beadboard meets the ceiling. It looked like a knot in the wood if you did not know what a knot looked like. I ran the cable through the old phone jack hole and into the pantry where my router lives behind the cereal, like a raccoon behind a fence. It was 4:32 by the wall clock. I texted my wife from the kitchen sink so the message would land in that shared cloud like a feather. Do you want me to pick up seltzer? We have 3 bottles left. Her reply came 5 minutes later. Already got it. Do not touch anything. And please wear the shirt I left on the bed. I put the phone face down and watched the mudroom feed on the cheap old tablet I keep for manuals. I zoomed in enough to make a person blush, then backed out because blushing would be a tell if my daughter walked in. The motion alert pinged at 5:06. The back door opened like it had a reason to be quiet. A hand came in first. A man's hand with the kind of nail care that comes from paying. Then his body, all neat jacket and clean boots, the kind of boots you buy for mud that never touches you. He used the key like he had done it before. He pocketed it. He did not call out. He looked down the hall. He walked to the kitchen like he had a map. I stood in the basement stairwell and let the banister hide me, and I listened to the hum of the smart vent above the stove. I installed that vent because grease sticks to everything in a coastal town. The vent connects to an app. The app lets you hear when the fan rattles. If you know where the test icon lives, it also lets you listen for rattles when no one thinks you are there. He set a box on the counter, same mint green as the cake box. Then, he took off his jacket and folded it, like a man who is not in a hurry until he needs to be. My wife came in behind him with a bag she does not take to church, and he smiled with teeth that photograph well. I breathed in to count. I got to 5. I put my hand on the newel post and kept it there. My palms were dry. My throat was not. Cutting it close, my wife said on the audio, like the vent was a friend she was whispering to. Put it in the freezer, she said, and get the plates to the garage. We'll prep out there. I told him we were out of seltzer. He should be gone long enough. Not my name. Mistake number 1 if you want to keep a secret in a house this size. Mistake number 2 was putting a key in a freezer like ice cancels brass. I stayed in the stairwell, listening to their every plate set. He was careful. He wiped a non-existent smear from the counter with the back of his hand, like he had a thing about fingerprints. He laughed when my wife told him my family was coming. Not a big laugh. The kind of smile you make when you want to pretend a person is a joke and you are above it. Tomorrow the deed moves, he said. It's clean. Our names will not be in the chain. Creditors can bark all they want. Good, she said. I want this done. That place is our future. The place was an old oceanfront lodge someone had slapped white paint on and called a venue. They were fast-tracking it into something expensive. He was the fixer type. I had seen his face in a local story about revitalization that was mostly photographs and light. He had the posture of a contractor who never lifted drywall. Use the back door when you leave, she said, and keep your head down. I always do, he said. He did not, actually. He walked like a stage needed him. He tucked his jacket under his arm and paused to admire the stainless reflection of his own face in our stove hood. And then the back door closed, soft. I came up from the stairwell and stood in the kitchen. I opened the freezer. The cake waited like a mint-colored dare. The key was still gone. I opened the drawer next to the stove. My grandmother's old paring knife sat there next to the good shears. Hers was the kind of knife that cuts everything except the kind of rope you tie yourself with. I closed it. When I walked back toward the hall, my daughter bounced past with a stack of napkins tall enough to collapse. Grandma just texted that they're 5 minutes out, she said. Mum says put the flowers in water and fix your face. My face is fine, I said. Mum says try anyway, she said. I put the flowers in the sink and filled it halfway. Ran cool water. Watched the bubbles drain from the stems. I found my jaw in the window reflection and told it to relax like it was a stubborn bracket. Then I went to our bedroom to look at the shirt she had requested. On the bed sat a new blue button down with the tags on. Next to it, a black garment bag leaned against the dresser. I reached under the frame for the box where we keep winter scarves and hit something that was not a cardboard edge. I reached again and pulled out a small nylon satchel with a zipper. It weighed more than it looked. Inside were a designer dress, a little bottle of perfume shaped like a grenade, and my grandmother's necklace, the one my wife wore on our wedding day when the wind blew and we said the right things. I set the satchel on the bed. My phone buzzed. A group chat called Boardwalk Mums jumped to the top. I do not name these things. My wife does. But when we bought that family plan and linked purchases, some things became shared by accident in a way that is not illegal and is not a hack. It is just sloppy cloud hygiene, the modern equivalent of leaving a letter open on the hall table. The latest message sat there bold as a permit stamp. The message was a photo of a tattoo on skin, a delicate little shell tucked in a place people do not see in line at the grocery store. The caption said, "Your move, Queen. Tomorrow is the show." I took the blue shirt, buttoned it in the mirror, and practiced smiling with my teeth. The in-laws are punctual people. They do not believe in the elastic nature of time. They brought a casserole even though I told them we had the food covered. They are the kind of polite that feels like a wall you can lean your entire weight against, and it will not move. My wife arrived in the driveway at the same time, the back hatch of her SUV raised, her cheeks soaked with that flush that looks a lot like exercise. She kissed her mother on both cheeks. She hugged her father. She kissed our daughter and straightened the stack of plates on the table like the plates were unruly students. She looked at me like a person looks at a neighbor across a fence no one is allowed to cut down. "You got the seltzer?" I said. "Yes," she said. "Thank you," I said. We served roasted chicken I had rubbed with citrus, and a spice blend I learned from a plumber in a crawl space who taught me more about life than some college professor ever did. The table looked right. The food tasted right. The only wrong thing in the room was the mint green cake box on the counter, wearing its French label like perfume. We ate. We made a polite mess. My daughter made jokes that landed, and I laughed in a way that was true. People can be a disaster in one direction and good at another. That is what makes them hard to hate cleanly. That is also what makes revenge worth the labor. You have to honor the parts that deserve honor, and then you have to zero the rest with a wrench. After the plates were cleared, my wife disappeared toward the garage with her phone. The garage was organized for catering, not cars. Shelves, bins, heat lamps, a 6-burner rolling range on a cart the man with the mint green box had delivered on Tuesday when I was on an inspection by the river, and the rain made the client think the whole house was sobbing. My daughter stacked dessert plates at the edge of the counter and looked to me like a referee checks the box on a clipboard before the game resumes. "Do we slice it, or does Mum?" she said. "If Mum bought it, she can take the first slice," I said. "Mum didn't buy it," she said. "Then we will all share the mystery," I said. I lifted the lid. The cake was beautiful in a precise, architectural way that tells you a person cares about angles. Pistachios like small green tiles, a glaze that caught light, a little white chocolate plaque stamped with a logo that tries very hard to tell you money was spent. "Smells like a tree," my daughter said. "Trees are good," I said. "Not the ones that fall on roofs," she said, and grinned because she knows that is the most expensive joke you can make in October. "Where is your mother?" my mother-in-law asked, returning from the hallway. "In the garage," I said, "prepping something for tomorrow." "What is tomorrow?" she asked. "A thing at the lodge," I said. "A tasting, soft opening, nothing official." "That place is not ready," my father-in-law said. He is a retired firefighter. He looks at buildings the way I do, except his eyes land on exits and signage first. "Yes," I said. "Not ready." The back door opened. A man stepped in without knocking. He wore neat boots and entitled air. He stopped when he saw the table, retracted the smile like a turtle's head, and said the wrong sentence. "I texted you to say I was here," he said to the room. I moved before my brain did. I got between him and the table because I was raised by parents who taught me that strangers do not enter kitchens. He lifted his hands like a peace offering and then put them down because my face told him to. "Who are you?" my father-in-law said, standing. The man squared his shoulders and tried to find authority in his chin. I saw the small twitch people make when they adjust their self-image. I heard my own breath in my ears and the hum of the vent fan above us, monitoring its own clean filters. "Delivery," the man said finally. "Dessert." "We already have it," I said, and tapped the cake with the knife. "Then I'll go," he said. He pivoted. He misjudged the step. He bumped me with his shoulder in that way people do to stake something. It was small. It was a size check. It was stupid. I slapped him. Not wild, not a punch. The palm of my right hand connected with his cheek with a sound, like a wet magazine landing flat on a table. His head turned. Everybody breathed. He straightened without looking at me, and walked out the door with the fixed gait of someone who just made the decision to leave before the video colored worse. My mother-in-law said my name like a question and a prayer. My daughter's eyes were huge and bright, like headlights pointed at fog. "Sorry," I said to the table. "Reflex." I served the cake. It was excellent. My wife came in a minute later, eyes darting, cheeks calm. She saw the empty spot where the man had been and the little welt on my palm. She set her phone face down and smiled the kind of smile you use to convince a group of people that what just happened did not happen. "I hope you like pistachio," she said. "It tastes like a lawsuit," my father-in-law said. "We do not need lawsuits," my wife said quickly. "We need to be adults." "I will be an adult tomorrow morning," I said. "Do not start," she said. "I already filed the paperwork," I said, and put my fork down. Sleep is a luxury for the honest. I slept 3 hours. At 6 a.m., I was at my kitchen table with coffee and a legal pad, drawing a map of the lodge and its permit path, like I was tracking a mouse under a floor. Every place has a weak point. You find it by reading what no one else reads. The town website is not flashy, but it is exhaustive. The fire code is dry until you learn to hear the music in it. The HOA bylaws are poorly written, which means they are flexible, which means a person who reads them sober can make them sing. I listed the lodge's current status: temporary occupancy denied pending variance on parking, electrical permit open, not signed off, 2 egresses blocked during Reno, exit signs hung but not powered during daytime events, sprinkler heads installed but not pressure tested, food service license provisional pending a proof of cold storage capacity, vendor insurance on file, but the rider for open flame events expired 3 months ago with an automatic renewal that failed because someone mistyped a policy number. I know this because the PDF was uploaded with a file name that included an underscore and the words pending correction. If you want to hide a mistake, do not publish it with a label. My phone chimed. Boardwalk Moms was humming with chatter about tomorrow's soft open. Photos of floral mock-ups, panicked talk of a rain plan, a reminder to wear boots that do not sink into lawn. Someone asked whether the fire pit would be lit because the forecast said 50 degrees, and people like fire when they are pretending to love the outdoors. Another mom posted a screenshot of a calendar invite with the lodge logo. It had my wife's name on it as co-host. That would make her happy if the wall stood. Under the bed, the nylon satchel weighted like a wound. I took my grandmother's necklace out and laid it on the table. Old gold, not fancy, the kind of thing that meant something before people measured meaning in views. I remembered the man's words last night about the deed moving. If he switched ownership to a shell, creditors would have to chase paper. Not my business usually. Live and let sharks eat sharks. But credit hunger makes people cut corners, and corners are where the fire eats first. At 9 a.m., the town website posted the daily inspection schedule. The lodge had an open hour for public walkthrough at noon as part of their PR push. They wanted to show progress. They wanted to perfume the fact that they were behind. I put on my work jacket and my old boots with the Kevlar toe, and I drove down to the harbor on streets I know, like I know the back of my own hand. The wind blew hard enough to make the flags on the lampposts crack like dish towels. The ocean sat grey and stubborn. The lodge was white and clean against the water, with black trim like eyeliner on a face that believes it owns the room. Inside, a young woman in black with a headset smiled at me like I was a donor. She offered me coffee. She directed me to a sign about the future. Citizen walkthrough, I said. I saw it posted. Yes, of course, she said. We are very proud of the progress. Me too, I said. I love progress that does not violate code. She laughed like she did not understand the joke, but wanted to pass the class. She handed me a folder with a glossy rendering of a reception hall lit like heaven. I walked the service corridors first, because that is where the truth lives. In the war on risk, a mop sink tells you more than a chandelier. The main kitchen was clean and new in that way, where nothing has any scars yet, which means no one has learned anything. The secondary prep area had 6 extension cords, daisy-chained to reach a rolling warmer. There were exit signs hung above the side doors, but the electrician had not yet tied them to the same circuit they have to live on by law. A broom leaned across an exit bar. A stack of Chiavari chairs blocked the right-hand push. The fire extinguisher had a tag dated 2 years ago from a different building. The tag was on a zip tie like a souvenir. The head of a sprinkler in the corner had a little tape over it to keep dust out, which is fine if you remove it before the party. It was still on. I took photographs. Photographs tell a simple story in court. I did not plan to go to court. I planned to go to the fire marshal with a smile, and the kind of details that make a person do their job like it is the only job that exists. In the main hall, a man with a good haircut and a clipboard was explaining to a group of women that the cliffside ceremony spot would be backfilled with gravel by the weekend. I recognized him. He was the lover. He saw me. He did not know if I was a donor, a threat, or both. He chose charm, because charm is what men like him sharpen when they should sharpen their pencils. "You must be a fan of historic properties," he said, when we were close enough to pretend intimacy. "I am a fan of exits that open when people run," I said. He glanced past me at the side door. He smiled wider. "We are weeks from opening," he said. "These are details that will be buttoned up." "Then you do not need me to help button them," I said. "I already filed the complaint." He leaned in like a man smelling a rumor. His eyes cut to my chest. Note the worn jacket, the patch with my company name. His mouth tightened. "You do not want a war with me," he said quietly. "Wrong," I said. "War is an ugly word. You have a PR problem and a list problem. I am in the list business." He nodded once. Not a bow. A little mechanical acknowledgement of the presence of friction. He went back to his donors. I went back to the service corridor and took a photograph of a coil of tape resting on an exit bar like a prophecy. At noon, as promised, they did a tasting for vendors and friends. The open kitchen was theatre. Heat lamps glowed. A rented chef in black flicked salt like a magician. The range hummed with a confidence I do not like in appliances no one has sworn at yet. I took a place near the back where the ceiling dips, because the old roofline meets the new, and I watched the chef reach for a torch to kiss the top of a meringue. I knew the torch brand. It is a good torch. The CO2 cartridges were stacked next to it like soldiers. The permit for open flame was not posted. The insurance rider had not been refiled. I know because I checked that PDF before I got in my truck. A breaker somewhere chattered. The lights dimmed. The hood fan stuttered. A little cough of smoke rose from the left side burner like a rehearsal. I stepped forward and reached the little red handle on the gas cutoff and turned it. Not all the way. The chef cursed the way pros curse when the show falters. The room murmured. The lover stepped from the shadows like a stage manager. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said with that smile, "we are experiencing a minor—" "It is not minor," I said, louder than I like to be in public. "Your open flame permit is not valid. Your exit signs are hung but not powered. Your side exit is blocked in 3 different ways. Your extinguisher tag is decoration. And your sprinkler heads are still taped, so if someone lights a napkin the wrong way, you will water the wrong circle." Phones came up. You can feel the tide of a room switch from whine to attention. The lover's smile tightened like a screw. "Sir, if you have concerns, we can discuss them privately," he said. "No," I said. "You will discuss them with the fire marshal. I already filed the complaint, with photos, with dates." He stepped close enough that I could see the cheap skin of his charm where it had cracked. He lowered his voice to a hiss people around us still heard. "You do not want this," he said. "I want exactly this," I said. "I want you to stand in a room built for weddings and explain why you put tape over the head that keeps people from burning." "Out," he said. "Gladly," I said. I walked. I gave the room my back because you have to know when to stop and let gravity and paperwork finish a job. As I reached the door, a tow-headed guy with a security badge stepped in front of me like his beard made him taller. He looked me up and down. I looked back. He moved. I left. Outside, the sky had gone that lethal blue you get before a storm. The wind had a taste of metal in it. At the far end of the gravel lot, the lover's car sat like a jewel. Imported coupe. Low to the ground like a cat. The kind of car men buy when they want to signal slick without saying the word. I am not a vandal, I am a carpenter, but some problems ask for foam. At dawn, I had bought 2 small cans of expanding foam sealant at the hardware store. I used one on a window frame repair I actually had on my list. I put the other in my jacket because I am a Boy Scout with a dark streak. The lover's doors had old-fashioned keyholes, along with the fob, because companies like to call things heritage. The foam fit there like fate. A small squeeze and then another. a slow bead of future trouble hardening like a decision. Across the lot, a truck with orange lights rolled in with the lazy confidence of a guy who has towed half the town. I did not call it. I do not call everything. Enough people saw enough things inside. Someone called. The lover came out in a hurry and then acted like he was strolling. He saw the tow. He saw me. He thought I had orchestrated the entire violin section. He broke into a half run. I walked the other way. He chased me across the dock walkway, shoes skidding on damp boards. "You piece of," he said. "Breathe," I said. "Cardio is good for you." I dropped a bait phone from my pocket. It was old. It had one job. When it hit the planks, it woke and played an audio file at full volume. His voice filled the damp air, clear as a bell. "Use the house." "He is out. It is perfect. The key is in the freezer," he said, on the recording he made in my kitchen like a fool. He looked right. He looked left. He looked up at the gulls like birds have a code of silence. The tow truck hooked his coupe in a smooth, practiced move and began to winch. He stood there with his mouth open, a fish on a dock. I took my phone out and filmed exactly 10 seconds. I did not post it. You let others do your labor when the street will pay. If you have never seen a small town choose its favorite story for the day, you have missed a free fireworks show. The lodge run-in hit Boardwalk Moms by 6 that evening and spread to the HOA forum by 7. I posted nothing and corrected nothing. I put screenshots and inspection photo links in 2 messages to 2 people who take pride in not being fooled. I included no insults. Facts are heavier than profanity. They land better. At 8, someone posted a clip of me at the tasting pulling the gas. A neighbor wrote that she did not know gas had an off switch. 3 people liked the comment. 1 man wrote that the range looked expensive. 2 more asked the kind of questions you ask when you want to be seen asking questions. I said nothing. By 9, someone uploaded a photo of the exit bar with a broom leaning on it. By 9:15, a mum asked if strollers counted against occupancy. At 9:17, I answered that question with a link to the state fire code. The town clerk liked my answer. That was enough fuel. At 9:30, there was a knock on my front door. I stood in the hallway and watched the camera feed. The security guy from the lodge was on my porch, shifting from foot to foot. He had the kind of beard guys grow when they want to read older, but still get eyed at the convenience store. He rang again. I opened the door with the chain on. I never use the chain. Tonight, I used the chain for the symbolism. "You made a mistake today," he said. He had a voice like gravel. "Lots of people did," I said. "I am supposed to tell you to stop," he said. "You just did," I said. "If you keep going, someone will get hurt," he said. "Not by me," I said. He shifted like an actor who forgot his next line. He looked at the camera above my door and did that dumb hand wave people do, as if they can erase a lens with a gesture. He lowered his voice and leaned toward the crack of the door like he could climb into my hallway by force of breath. "You do not know who you are messing with," he said. "I know exactly who I am messing with," I said. "You are a rented scarecrow standing in a parking lot pretending to be thunder. Smile for the camera." He looked at the red LED and blinked first. He stepped back, put both hands up like a bartender, surrendering a last call, and walked down my steps slower than he came up. I watched him go. I saved the clip to a folder labeled in a way that told me I was becoming a man who labels revenge like it is a job. In my bedroom, my wife was asleep on her side of the bed, like a person who trusts a house not to move under her. The nylon satchel was back under the bed, where I hid it, and that bothered me, in a way that felt like a wire humming behind plaster. I picked up my grandmother's necklace and set it on the dresser, where my wife would see it and understand I can count. The quiet after that was the kind that hums. It wasn't silence so much as a collection of soft mechanical murmurs. The refrigerator cycling, the clock's steady breath, the distant thrum of a late train down by the river. The house has its own way of talking when you stop filling it with words. I stood there listening, hand on the edge of the dresser, thinking about how fast truth travels when people have a taste for spectacle. The lodge story wasn't even the kind of thing that should have mattered. A broken valve, a quick hand, a turned switch. The chef had forgotten to close the line after the morning prep, and I'd noticed the hiss while they were setting up the tasting table. I pulled the shutoff, waved the smoke from the burners, and told them to call the inspector before anyone else used it. That should have been the end. But small towns don't end things. They keep them alive like pets. They feed them, walk them around, show them off. By evening, the story had grown bones and teeth. By 6:30, someone had posted that I stormed the tasting, that I threatened staff, that I cut power. The verbs kept upgrading as the minutes went by. I watched the thread unfold like a slow accident. Nobody wanted correction, they wanted character. I was becoming one. I had learned long ago that silence is a kind of weapon. You let people fill it with their own echoes, and soon they're arguing with themselves. That was why I didn't post, didn't explain, didn't even text the chef to defend me. The truth doesn't need witnesses, only patience. But patience wears thin when your phone keeps blinking. By 8, the messages had changed tone, from gossip to inquiry to warning. You might want to see what they're saying. Just a heads up. Are you okay? The "are you okay" ones are never really about you being okay. They're people saying, I saw it too, and I want to be in the safe zone when this blows over. The clip that surfaced at 8 was from a phone I hadn't noticed. Someone had filmed me leaning over the range, turning the knob, and gesturing toward the staff to back away. No sound, just my body language, sharp and impatient in bad lighting. It looked like I was angry. People always believe anger before they believe caution. When the neighbor commented about not knowing gas had an off switch, I almost laughed. It was such a clean example of ignorance wrapped in confidence. But I didn't laugh. I took a screenshot instead. That's how you build insurance in a town like ours. Documentation, not conversation. By 9, when the photo of the broom against the exit bar appeared, I could feel the collective heartbeat of the forum speeding up. People here love cause and effect. Give them a picture, and they'll write a story that fits around it, no matter how crooked the fit. The broom looked staged. Maybe it was. But it didn't matter. The symbolism was too good. A blocked exit, a hero, a potential tragedy avoided. It had all the beats of a made-for-Facebook movie. When the mom asked about strollers and occupancy, I saw my opening. I sent the link to the state fire code, highlighted the relevant paragraph, and hit send. That's the difference between noise and authority. One arrives with citations. When the town clerk liked my answer, the thread pivoted. A few people started deleting their earlier comments. But deletions don't erase memory. Screenshots outlive remorse. At 9:30, when the knock came, I knew the evening wasn't done with me. The security guy must have drawn the short straw, or maybe volunteered, hoping it would earn him points with whoever sent him. The uniform didn't quite fit him. His badge hung too low, his belt too tight. The kind of guy who stands straighter when someone's watching and slouches when no one is. He looked up at the camera before knocking again, and that told me he'd already seen the red light and didn't like it. People think cameras are for protection. They're not. They're for precision. They remember better than you do. When I opened the door, I made sure the chain clicked loud enough for him to hear. Symbolism matters. It tells people what story they're walking into. He started with the line about mistakes, and I let him talk, nodding just enough to keep him from thinking he'd lost his place. His sentences had the rhythm of something rehearsed but not written down. Probably fed to him by a manager too cautious to come himself. I imagined that manager sitting in the lodge office, checking the clock, waiting for a message that the visit had been made, that the problem had been handled. But the problem wasn't me. It was the fact that someone thought I was a problem. When the guard said someone would get hurt, his voice softened, like he believed it. Maybe he did. Maybe he'd been told something vague enough to sound true. The guy's unstable. He's threatening people online. He's got a temper. Lies are easiest when they're built from recycled truths. I told him not by me, and that landed heavier than I meant it to. There's a kind of stillness that follows when a person realizes the script isn't working. He glanced at the camera again, waved like a child trying to close a curtain, and muttered that I didn't know who I was messing with. That was the line. Every threat has a moment when it shifts from professional to personal. That was his, and I answered with mine. The scarecrow line, the smile for the camera line. I didn't raise my voice. You don't need to when the words are sharp. He blinked, retreated, and performed that slow, performative walk of a man pretending dignity after losing it. I watched him until he disappeared past the hedge. Then I saved the clip, named it, and realized I'd crossed a small, invisible border inside myself. People say revenge is poison, but they never mention the taste. Metallic, addictive, convincing you that it's medicine. The house was quiet again. Upstairs, my wife's breathing was steady. That gentle rhythm that means she's deep in the kind of sleep only trust provides. The nylon satchel under the bed hummed in my memory like a power line. Inside it were things that didn't belong in a suburban home. Tools that were legal if you knew what you were doing, illegal if you didn't. I had built that kit over months, not for harm, but for readiness. Readiness can look like paranoia from the outside. I knelt, touched the satchel's strap, then left it there. I wasn't ready to open it. Some doors shouldn't open twice in one night. The necklace on the dresser caught the lamplight, its small gold beads forming a crooked line like Morse code. It had been my grandmother's, then my mother's, then mine, by accident of inheritance and silence. My wife once told me she didn't think I noticed when things went missing. She was wrong. I notice everything. I just wait to see if the missing thing returns on its own. Setting the necklace out wasn't a message of anger. It was accounting. I wanted her to see it in the morning and know that I count not just money or time, but intentions. The night stretched long after that. I walked through the house barefoot, touching walls, checking locks, pretending the motions were practical when really they were rituals. Each switch I flipped, each window I tested, was a way of mapping what still belonged to me. At the window facing the street, I could see the lodge's lights flickering through the trees. The building looked almost innocent from here, a box of warm yellow squares against the dark. But I knew what went on inside. Deals, favors, whispered threats, dressed as warnings. The lodge was where the town decided who was respectable. Respectability was the local currency. They'd made their first mistake thinking I wanted to be part of that economy. By 10, the forums had turned inward, people arguing over details, accusing one another of exaggeration, speculation, bias. That's how these things always collapse. They eat their own. I sat in the dark, phone face down, letting it buzz itself tired. The security clip played back smooth. His words were clearer than I'd remembered. You don't know who you're messing with. I replayed that line twice, not for the threat, but for the uncertainty in his tone. He wasn't warning me. He was repeating something he'd been told, like a password he didn't understand. That made me more curious than afraid. By 11, curiosity had replaced anger. I opened my laptop, logged into the public records portal, and started searching names. The lodge had 3 listed owners, all under a shell corporation that shared an address with a landscaping business 2 towns over. The manager who sent the security guard had once filed for bankruptcy, the kind of quiet failure people forget until it's useful. Threads always lead somewhere, if you're patient enough to follow them. Around midnight, I drafted an email to the fire marshal, polite, detailed, full of attached documentation. Screenshots, inspection codes, timestamps, the whole trail. I didn't send it yet. Timing matters. A well-timed truth can do more damage than 1,000 rumors. The house creaked as it cooled. My wife shifted, murmured something in her sleep about the morning, about pancakes. Ordinary dreams. I envied her for that. I used to dream in color. Lately, I dream in sounds. Clicks, locks, footsteps, doors closing. I poured a glass of water and stood by the kitchen window watching the streetlights glaze the asphalt. Every so often, a car rolled by, headlights sweeping across the hedges like search beams. Somewhere a dog barked, then barked again, then stopped. The air outside was damp, heavy with the smell of ocean salt and late autumn rot. This town always smells like something ending. I thought about the guard again, his nervous shifting, his gravel voice. He wasn't evil, just rented. Most threats are. But behind him, someone else had decided I needed to be quiet, and that someone was going to learn that quiet is not my natural state. The next morning would bring messages, apologies, corrections, half-hearted explanations. But that night I learned something truer. Silence can burn longer than outrage. It smolders in other people's minds until they can't tell whether they were right or wrong. By 2 a.m, I was still awake, sitting at the edge of the bed, staring at the necklace on the dresser. The red LED from the camera outside blinked faintly through the curtains, marking time like a pulse. I realized I wasn't angry anymore. I was focused. That's worse. Anger burns out. Focus builds. I took a notebook from the drawer, the one where I keep notes that matter, and wrote a list of names, not targets, just reference points. People who liked posts, people who commented, people who stayed silent but viewed every story. Silence is its own kind of participation. When I was done, I tore the page out, folded it once, and slid it into the satchel under the bed. The zipper closed with a soft rasp, the kind of sound that seals intent. Outside, the first hint of fog began rolling down from the hills, blurring the lodge lights into halos. The town would wake to it, move through it, talk about something new before noon. But the internet never forgets, and neither do I. I lay down next to my wife, careful not to wake her. She turned toward me in her sleep, reached out an arm, and rested her hand on my shoulder, like a vote of confidence from someone who didn't know the ballot. I closed my eyes. In the dark, the town kept whispering through its wires. Threads refreshed, screens lit, and stories reshaped themselves. Every click was a heartbeat, every post a confession, and somewhere in all that noise the truth waited, patient, heavier than profanity, waiting to land. Dawn tastes like pennies this time of year. I took my coffee, black and hot, and drove to the marina with the foam leftovers in my jacket pocket. I do not vandalize as a rule, but I respect punctuation. The lover's coupe sat alone against a grey sky, like a promise no one believes anymore. Expanding foam is technically for gaps around windows. The keyhole is a gap. Every lie you tell the world makes another gap. The can hissed soft and satisfying, and then I walked away and put the can in a public trash can because I do not litter. It is a small town. People remember rappers. At 7:40 a.m., the tow company sent a bill to the lodge. Someone forwarded it to the HOA because the lodge had been using a slice of the public lot to stage trucks. The HOA chair wrote a letter with 3 underlines and a threat the lodge had no budget to ignore. It is funny how fast a non-profit finds its spine when a for-profit pretends the town is its foyer. By 9, the lover had a different car on loan. By 9:30, the story of the foam keyholes made it to the coffee shop and turned into a legend with a different number of cans depending on who told it. By 10 a.m., I got a text from my daughter that said, "Mum is not talking." Also, she called the cake guy by his first name in the garage, and I heard her correct herself. Also, I am making my own breakfast now forever. At noon, a city permit clerk emailed me to thank me for the photographs from the tasting and to remind me that citizen reports keep events safe. I printed the email and slipped it into a manila folder where I keep receipts, warranties, and other small, blunt objects. At 2 p.m., the lover posted a photo of himself in a hard hat next to a wall of white in the main hall, with a caption about progress and resilience. I took a screenshot. I opened the screenshot and circled the exit sign that was still dark. At 4 p.m., I was in my truck in the driveway, checking the camera feed from the mudroom and trying to decide whether to go out for salt, when the back door opened again with the kind of slow that tells you a person is performing quiet for an audience of one, themselves. The lover stepped in, looked around, and went to the kitchen like he had something to retrieve. He opened the freezer and stared down for a beat that could have been a prayer. He closed it and walked down the hall. The tension in his shoulders told me he was not hunting dessert. He was marking territory. He put his hand on the edge of my counter like a dog at a lamppost. Then he left. I let the door click. I unlocked my truck. I drove to the hardware store for salt I did not need, because sometimes you stand next to other men and talk about brine, so you do not put your fist through a wall. People talk about evidence like it is a miracle you conjure. Evidence is boring. Evidence is lists. Evidence is nothing but dates that agree with other dates. I kept 2 folders. One was labeled Lodge. One was labeled House. I filled Lodge with copies of the open permits, a printout of the variance notice, inspection photos with timestamps, a stapled bundle of emails that included the expired insurance rider and the clerk's thanks. I filled House with Ring camera logs, a transcription of the mudroom audio, screenshots of text messages that came to the family iPad with their stupid emojis like a parade of fools, and a copy of my grocery orders for the last 2 months with the big Italian Markets logo like a seal of my consistent routine. I printed 2 photographs from the shared iCloud backup that was not shared by choice. One was of the lover in my kitchen, wearing my apron, cooking an omelette with a smile, like a man auditioning for a cooking show. He was shirtless. He had a tan line he would not want his investors to see. The second photograph was of my wife's hand on his shoulder, her grandmother's ring catching a sliver of afternoon light from our east window. Nothing obscene, nothing that would get blurred, just enough intimacy to make a person go quiet at a table. At 5 p.m., I put a sealed envelope with the HOA chair's name on it in his mailbox. Inside was a calm letter about the lodge's use of the public lot and a dozen photographs with dates. I did not sign it with rage. I signed it with my full name and phone number and my license number. If you want to be believed, never hide behind a screen name when you can put your professional number on paper. At 6 p.m., my daughter texted from her friend's house that she would be home by 9 and not to wait up. At 6:15, my wife came through the front door with the exact drama of a person who wants what is happening in her face to be the only thing we talk about. "You humiliated me," she said. "Not yet," I said. "You have no right to mess with my work," she said. "You made our house into a prep kitchen for your boyfriend," I said. "I am making sure your boyfriend does not burn 12 women in matching dresses." "You slapped him," she said. "He bumped me," I said, "and men like him need to be introduced to gravity." "We can fix this," she said. "I do not want to fix this," I said. She opened her mouth. She closed it. She looked at the necklace on the dresser and blinked twice like the glass in her eye cracked. She went to the kitchen and opened the freezer and stared at the empty spot where the key had been, like it could make a hole in time. "Where is it?" she said. "Where is what?" I said. "The spare key," she said. "Ask your boyfriend," I said. She did not deny. She did not agree. She put both hands on the counter and bowed her head like a person receiving last rites. "When this is over," she said, "I am leaving." "When this is over," I said, "you will not need to leave. There will not be anything here for you to hang your hat on." "That is cruel," she said. "Yes," I said. She nodded. She left the room the way a person leaves a church when the sermon is not about grace. I cleaned the sink because a clean sink makes me feel like there is still such a thing as order. Then I went down to the basement and checked the joist jacks. The left one needed a quarter turn. Houses settle, even while your life floats. I turned the handle slowly, felt the old beams rise the way a back adjusts when you stretch in the morning and hear one vertebra let go. When I came back up, the house was quiet. The mudroom camera showed nothing. The kitchen vent hummed softly, not recording, just breathing. I sat at the table with my folders and my coffee, and the quiet strength that comes when you realize a person has unlocked a door to a war they did not train for. If you want me to continue from here with chapters 9 to 20 and drive it all the way through your planned finale and final words, tell me and I'll deliver the next block in a follow-up message, keeping the style, logic, realism, and sequence exactly intact.